A very good morning, everyone. Welcome to StudyIQ English, your favorite UPSC platform. Welcome to today's Hindu news analysis session with me. Let's analyze the 13th September 2025 important UPSC relevant articles from the Hindu New Delhi edition for the day. Okay, and now let's quickly see how many articles do we have here for analysis. And on that note, a very good morning, Bulbul, Sudesh, Tanishka. Most welcome to the lecture. Okay, so looking at the list of today's topics, I have picked up 8 articles for you. The first 3 articles will need some time. They are slightly more detailed, given that they are relevant for UPSC mains. The other articles are quite small. They are a short read, more for your UPSC prelims exam. So now let's going with today's first article of the day. And this is the front page article. I have taken it from the page 1 of the Hindu. It says, Miss Sushila Karki is the new and the first woman Prime Minister of Nepal. Now, what a wonderful news. Nepal not only has a new Prime Minister, at the same time, she happens to be the first lady Prime Minister of Nepal. A huge milestone in Nepal's gender empowerment narrative. A huge milestone in bringing some stability to a country that has experienced last few days of utter violence, killings, indiscriminate attacks on people. So this is page number 1. Very good morning, Rishi. Very good morning, Ramu. So what does the news say? The news says that this article is important for GS paper 2. We are talking about international relations. This is a global current event. It is a news from international domain. So we shall analyze it. Okay, very good morning there, Rai. Okay, so the article says Nepal's president, Mr. Ram Chandra Paudel, has appointed the new first woman prime minister for Nepal, named Miss Sushila Karki. Okay, so let's remember the name, Miss Sushila Karki. Her appointment comes in the wake of a complete disrupted democracy in Nepal for the last few days. So let's remember 2 points here. She is the first woman PM for Nepal. A very important milestone in gender empowerment. Second thing, she is not only the first woman Prime Minister of Nepal, in fact, she was also the first Chief Justice of Nepal. So quite an important achievement here. She was also the first Chief Justice of Nepal, Miss Sushila Karki. Now, as she is appointed as the Prime Minister right now, the reason is that former Prime Minister, the government had to be dissolved because the Parliament needed a quick dissolution. Fresh elections have now been announced for March 2026 in Nepal. Now, this is something that is quite against Nepali constitution, because under Nepali constitution, before the completion of the term, a parliament cannot be dissolved. But today it has happened as an emergency situation, and fresh elections will now happen in the beginning of next year. Why did this happen? Because in the last few days, we have seen the Generation Z, the Gen Z protest in Nepal had taken a very ugly shape. The main reason why these protests happened was because young generation of Nepal feels cheated. It feels that there is no democracy that is systematic in Nepal. The immediate trigger was a ban on social media platforms like Facebook, X, Instagram. Nepali government says all these social media platforms, Western media platforms, failed to register themselves under the Nepali law. The rule is that they have to re-register every few years. But they failed to do that, and therefore Nepali government had to ban them in order to protect safety, security and morality of Nepali culture. At the same time, Generation Z saw this as an attempt to snatch the right of free speech and expression. They were angry. They took to the roads. They started taking law in their own hands. Hence, the current government led by Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, it collapsed. It collapsed on 9th September 2025. Since then, Nepal has been under utter chaos. Now, the military had been therefore playing a very important role in mediating the crisis in Nepal. And now comes the appointment of Ms. Sushila Karki, who, as I said, was the first Chief Justice of Nepal. Today, she is the first woman Prime Minister of Nepal. Absolutely. A very good morning, Stora. Very good morning, Order. Yes, absolutely. Now, as the Gen Z have taken to the roads, and the new lady, the First Lady Prime Minister, Ms. Sushila Karki, has come to power, we should also know the reason why the young generation of Nepal was so angry in the first place. Now, the ban on social media is only a short term trigger, it is the immediate cause. But in the long term, if we see the history of Nepal, Nepal has been the most unstable democracies in the world right now. There have been frequent government collapses. In just the last few years, since 2008 onwards. Now, remember, 2008 is important because in 2008, Nepal abolished the existing monarchy system. Monarchy means the rule by the king and the queen, the royal dynasty. That came to an end. And after that, a constitutional democracy was created. But since then to now, 2025, more than 12 governments had been changed in Nepal. So, which means 12 different regimes have come and gone in just a matter of few years. This frequent government collapse is related to ongoing corruption and bureaucratic malpractices in Nepal. The people of Nepal are also complaining that under the constitution of Nepal that was created and defined in 2015 properly, the Nepali constitution, a federal democratic republic had been created. But repeated changes of the government and repeatedly fragmented politics, dynasty led politics has led to this problem today that everything has come to a collapse. Now, the Generation Z wants a new government, just like India's Prime Minister Shri Modi government. That's what they are saying on paper. They say that we want an Indian government, a government like India, who is transparent, who understands the intricacies of today's geopolitical problems across the world. Nepali government has failed to do that in the past. The Generation Z of Nepal are also angry. They are saying that our government is corrupt. There is the domination of royal families still. Old parties continue to dominate without giving an opportunity to young leaders. Therefore, the social media ban is further just showing the same sentiment that the government of Nepal doesn't feel the necessity of giving people their democratic rights. Yes, it's an attack on their speech and freedom of expression. That's what they feel. So now for Nepal, dissolving a government, dissolving a parliament before appointing a prime minister is very unconventional. For the first time, it is happening. It is quite not allowed under Nepali law. Existing parliament cannot be dissolved until the prime minister is appointed. But today it is happening. There is no choice. There was an utter chaos and breakdown of law that was happening. To solve this instability, Nepal has taken this rare choice, and one, for the first time, a lady prime minister has been appointed. And this instability was also therefore causing a problem to other countries like India and China. Now, a lot of you might get worried that how is it related to India's security concern? Please let's understand that Nepal essentially acts as a buffer state. A buffer state is one that is sandwiched between two other important major countries. Here, Nepal's geopolitical strategic location is very sensitive. It comes in between India and China. So, therefore, talking about China, China has invested a huge amount of money in Nepal already. One aspect of Chinese investment in Nepal is the BRI, the Belt and the Road Initiative project. Under that, many schemes have been done in Nepal by China. So for China also, it's a matter of concern that if there is a breakdown of law and order in Nepal, it can impact Chinese people working there. It can impact Chinese infrastructure in Nepal. Similarly, for India also, we have seen so many tourists who were traveling Nepal got stranded. One lady also got killed, unfortunately, as she was trying to escape Kathmandu. People who were the pilgrims to the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra are also stranded right now. Once again, for India, across states like Uttarakhand also, it has become a matter of huge regional security concern. Because often when riots break down in a country, there is a lot of refugee influx that happens into the Indian borders. So that's why today, not only for India, but also for Nepal and China, it is a quite critical situation. So now the new Prime Minister has come, and she is coming with a lot of hope of stability and development for the country. So let's see how things evolve. That was the first news of the day. And now let's quickly look at the question based on that. Consider the following statements regarding the recent political developments of Nepal. 1. Ms. Sushila Karki is Nepal's first woman Chief Justice. Now she is also the first woman Prime Minister of the country. Second, the Nepali Constitution 2015 clearly provides that Parliament can be dissolved only after elections are conducted and the PM is appointed. 3. The next general elections in Nepal are scheduled to happen in March 26, following the dissolution of Parliament in September 25. It's a quite easy question. If you have understood the article, you can solve the question, you can try to solve it. Absolutely, I agree. Thailand is a constitutional monarchy, yes. Absolutely, Rishi, that's a valid statement being made by you there. Okay, so you can try to answer the question, and you can also verify your answer from the last slide of answers. Now let's quickly proceed with the second important article. This is editorial page for you, page number 6. Absolutely valid, Ramu. Page number 6, editorial front page article says the RTI, the right to information, shift to the right to deny information. The writer of this article, he's a former Central Information Commissioner, and he is saying that when the Right to Information Act was created back in 2005, the RTI, very good morning, Prakash, the purpose was to strongly give a message to the people that in India, if there is any information that can be disclosed in front of the parliament, it can be disclosed in the front of people as well. Because India is a socialistic democracy and people are the custodians of law. People are the ones who elect the representatives at the parliament. While the people directly elect their representatives at the Lok Sabha, it is the representation of various states in India that is visible in the Rajya Sabha. So therefore, the parliament is answerable to the people, and Supreme Court says, it has said multiple times, that no information can be hidden from the people of India unless it is an information that is in the interest of national security, safety of India, sovereignty of India, or it comes under the Official Secrecies Act. Until that's the problem, and every information has a right to reach to the people, and people have a right to know everything that's going on in the government departments. That's the principle of RTI, Right to Information 2005. The principle of information, which says all the information that the government has is actually the information that belongs to the people of India. The default logic is that the government has to disclose everything to the people except the prohibited information. As I said, that comes under Official Secrecies Act. That is with regards to India's safety, sovereignty, and people's moral and dignity. Apart from that, everything has to be disclosed. But today a controversy has broken out. There is another law in India named as the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. We call this as the DPDP Act, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. There is another problem. Long back, under the Puttaswamy case versus the Supreme Court of India, the Supreme Court had said that right to privacy of your personal information, of your personal matters, is also a fundamental right within Indian polity. If right to privacy is a fundamental right that Indian citizens have, and there is also a law that protects the personal data of Indian citizens, named as the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, then how do we define the scope of the 2005 Right to Information Act? Because both these, right to privacy and the DPDP Act, they are exactly in contrast and contradiction to the Right to Information Act, under which every citizen has every right to every information that the government is holding. So therefore, ever since there has been an amendment in the DPDP Act, ever since we have amended the Section 8 subclause 1 of the DPDP Act, the problem has started. Today, under the new amendment of Section 8(1) of the DPDP Act, the government and individuals can withhold certain information that is private, and if it is violating the fundamental right of privacy, then it can be hidden. But the writer of the article says it is almost like snatching the power of RTI and making RTI from right to information to the right to deny information. And this is highly, highly undemocratic in a country like India. That's the issue. So let's understand the timeline. RTI came into force in 2005. The purpose of RTI was to create at every level public information officers at the central level, at the state level. We had the central level ones, we had the state level ones, we also had additional PIOs to support the other two. Public information officers, who within a matter of 48 days to a month, upon receiving an application by a citizen, will make sure that information is given on that particular issue to the citizen who wants that information. That's the law under RTI. It came into force in October 2005. Yes, the DPDP Act, absolutely, 2023. We'll talk about it. Okay. So RTI came in October 2005. The purpose of RTI was just to make sure that government is transparent, government is corruption free, government is accountable to the people. We are able to empower the citizens to get every information from the government departments, whichever we want to know about, we should know. After all, we are asking information from our representatives. They are the people we have elected. So absolutely we have a right, and that's RTI 2005. So therefore, how does it work? I told you, through public information officers at the center, state level, and the additional officers also. But there is one exception in the RTI. And that exception and that unique, unusual exception is Section 8 of the RTI. Under Section 8 of the RTI, if there is an information that is related to national security of India, if it is related to India's sovereignty, if it is related to international relations, if it is related to contempt of court, if it is related to commercial confidence, if it is related to fiduciary relationships, or if it is a very, very personal information, then it can be hidden. The government may choose not to disclose that, but that is an exception. Section 8, only very sensitive issues like these: national security, safety, international relations, fiduciary relationship, sovereignty, contempt of court, such can be actually denied to the people in light of public security, India's national security. Okay. But very interesting thing is that there is another section, Section 8, Part 1J. This was added in order to create a situation where if there is an information that can be denied, it should be denied on the basis of the fact that the public has no need to know that information. There are certain issues that are not important for public in general to know about, maybe about government functioning in general. So under Section 8(1)J, there are certain issues in which original information can be hidden if there is no relationship of that information to public activity. Okay. But if that information also leads to a violation of privacy of people, ministers, government, any department, any company, if it is violating the privacy of these institutions, then also the government can deny that information. Now, this is causing a lot of controversy here, because under Section 1J, the problem is that right to privacy has become a major issue here. Till Section 8, everything is fine. That if the matter is about government functioning, security, sovereignty, we can hide the information, understood. But the section 181J, yes, absolutely. When it comes to official secrecy matters, functioning of the government, there are certain issues that the government may not want to disclose because people do not have to know them. This is ambiguous. This is causing controversy. It also says if it is invading the privacy of certain institutions and people. So, who defines what is privacy? That is causing a concern today. Isn't it contradictory to the very fundamental of RTI? That's what the article is asking. Another problem is that ever since the DPDP Act has come, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act in 2023, ever since this act was created, information has consistently been denied, highlighting the right to privacy under Section 81J. Initially, Section 81J of the RTI only said that if any information is invading the privacy, it's very private in nature, it can be denied. But after the DPDP Act comes, 2023, there is a lot of focus on right to privacy. Now people are highlighting the DPDP Act and asking, what do you mean by right to privacy of the government? What is so private that the citizens of India cannot know about a company, about a public enterprise, or about the ministers of India? What is so private after all? Everything is related to government functioning only, right? Then why the right to privacy? Why should we often tap on Section 81J here? This is a problem. People say that, what do you mean? There is no clarity on personal information. What is exactly personal information? Is it only an individual information about a minister? Is it about a company, a firm, an organization? Is it about an association? The government at large? Then how can it be labeled as private? That's the problem. So the DPDP Act has kind of defeated the whole purpose of RTI. RTI was very clear. RTI's principle was the same. If we want a transparent and corruption-free government, then government should be seen as a security keeper, as a custodian of public information, not as the owner of that information. Information has to go to the public because government is working for the public. Comes the DPDP Act. What privacy are we talking about? DPDP Act says no. It is important to protect information because we cannot violate data privacy of people. But that is defeating the purpose of RTI itself. Now, what does your constitution say? Under Indian Constitution, Article 19(1)(a) gives you the freedom of speech and expression. But in the Puttaswamy case versus the Supreme Court of India clearly said right to privacy is a fundamental right. But if right to privacy is a fundamental right, then what is the need of RTI Act? Then what is Section 81J of the RTI doing? What purpose is it solving for us today if everything is right to privacy and that becomes a fundamental right? Then to get an information from the government, is that not a fundamental right we are asking today? Similarly, speech and expression freedom also means that right to information, you should also have that as a fundamental right. Now, under the Constitution of India, Article 19, which is the right to freedom, gives Indian citizens variety of different kind of freedoms. Freedom of movement, to make associations, to settle and reside in any part of India, to take up any occupation. At the same time, Article 19(1)(a), yes, you have a right to free speech and expression. Within the framework of law, you can say anything, draw anything, express anything, write anything. Everything is your fundamental right. But there is an exception. Article 19, Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution, which says only with respect to public decency, public morality and national security, you will have the right to 19(1)(a), which means you have the freedom of speech and expression, but exceptions are Article 19(2). You cannot offend anybody on terms of religion, no hate speech. You cannot insult Republic of India. You cannot say, draw or write anything that is unconstitutional, against decency of the public. That we have to see. But today, once again, the conflict between right to privacy, Puttaswamy case, 2017, and the right to information are also coming in loggerheads. Just like Article 19(1)(a) is contradictory to Article 19 subclause 2. Today, RTI 2005 is coming in right contrast with the DPDP Act 2023. And the main cause of concern has become the Puttuswamy case 2017, where the Supreme Court has given right to privacy as a fundamental right. If right to privacy is a fundamental right, which means under Section 1J of the Right to Information Act, the government will be able to hide any information from the public. If public complains, they can say right to privacy is a fundamental right. Puttuswamy verdict 2017. The worst part is under Section 1J, 81J of the RTI 2005, if a public information officer is found guilty of disclosing an information that is wrongful, that is prohibited, then the fine on them can be as high as rupees 250 crores. If you scare your public information officers, who are the people responsible for giving the information to public by collecting it from the government, if you punish them and threaten them with rupees 250 crore fine, then who in future will readily and willingly act the duty of giving free information to the public? They will deny the information. Who wants a fine and punishment like that? Because every time they try to find the information, the government ministers and departments can come and say, no, this comes under RTI 81J. It's an exception. Why? Because we have a right to privacy, fundamental right. So that's why today it's a huge polity debate in India. Now, it's a very important question, by the way, GS paper 2, polity and governance. Make sure you're very well prepared for a mains answer on this. If you want, I can bring that answer and we can discuss it also in another session. Please understand that right now there is a major debate that's happening within Indian society, Indian polity, between, as I said, the right to data privacy that was created after the DPDP Act 2023, Data Personal and Data Protection Act, versus the Right to Information Act 2005, and the key Supreme Court verdict that is causing controversy is 2017 verdict named as the Puttaswamy verdict. This is also known as the right to privacy case. So whether government has a right to privacy and deny information to public, or whether the government has to give information to public because RTI was made for that purpose. That's the controversy. Very interesting topic. Now let's have a look at the question. Consider the following statements regarding recent changes in the Right to Information Act 2005. 1. Section 81J of the RTI allowed denial of personal information only if it was not related to public activity, or it resulted in a invasion of privacy. 2. The Digital Personal Data Protection DPDP 2023 Act has amended section 181J of the RTI, reducing it to a shorter form that broadens the scope of personal information. 3. Under the DPDP Act 2023, punishment for wrongful disclosure of information by a public information officer can be as high as rupees 250 crore. So which of these statements do you think is or are valid? I think it's quite a direct question. So you can try to answer and also verify your answer. Now, once again, I'm highlighting. After the exam next year, you will remember my words. This question is crucial for UPSC mains next year, GS paper 1 or 2. And in prelims also, definitely one question can come about section 81J. Remember that always. Third article, editorial page, page number 6. Property rights, tribals and gender parity gap. So once again, the topic is quite same. We are talking about GS paper 2, social justice for vulnerable populations in India. And yes, under question are the tribal women of India. Very nice, well answered order. Now, tribal women in India are one of the most backward segments among women themselves. Now, very interestingly, many people ask a question in UPSC that who are the vulnerable segments? Are they all minorities? Are minorities vulnerable? Are vulnerable minorities? So here, As per GS paper 2 UPSC syllabus, we have a very clear definition. The Indian Constitution only recognizes, multiple times I have told before, language, linguistic minorities, and religion, religious minorities, non-Hindu religions. These two are the constitutionally recognized minorities. Whenever you use the word minority, we only mean linguistic and religious. Articles 25 of Indian Constitution to Article 29. All of these deal with the cultural and educational rights of Indian minorities, both linguistic and religious minorities. Article 25 is the most important article for GS paper 1 and 2, social justice and society. I have told you the short form also to remember, PPP. Right to propagate, right to profess, and right to practice your religion. So all articles from 25 to 29 talk about religious, cultural, educational rights of Indian minorities. But who are the minorities? Please don't get confused. Indian Constitution only has two minorities, linguistic, religion. But who are the vulnerable people? Now, any segment of the population that is experiencing marginalization, poor educational development, poor economic growth, lack of participation in society, less representation in politics becomes the vulnerable segment. In India, we say that vulnerable are women, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, PWD, people with physical benchmark disabilities, the transgender population, elderly population above 65. All these are typically characterized as Indian vulnerable population. They may be minority, they may not be, but they are vulnerable. This article focuses on a special vulnerable group, women, that too tribal women. Now, when an individual experiences many different kinds of vulnerabilities, for example, I am a woman, that makes me vulnerable in Indian society. But what if I am also experiencing some physical disability? Or what if I come from a PVTG, as you're saying? Absolutely order, 75 PVTGs, yes. I have multiple kind of problems. Woman, my gender is causing vulnerability here. My tribal status is causing vulnerability. Maybe, for example, if I have a physical disorder, that is also causing vulnerability. This is known as intersectionality. Very important word. Lot of questions are coming on that nowadays in GS. Intersectionality, which means individuals with multiple kinds of vulnerabilities. Absolutely. Well defined, Ramu. Yes, these are the vulnerable people. Absolutely. The EWS2. Correct. Correct. If these are the vulnerable people, then tribal women are experiencing intersectionality. They are women, they are tribal, and they are also economically weaker, EWS, poor people. So they are experiencing a lot of backwardness. This article says, although in India, generally women experience a lot of marginalization. For example, the Hindu Succession Act 2005 has allowed daughters in Indian families to get equal right in parents' property. These are known as co-parcenary rights. What are they called? Co-parcenary rights. Equal right to property of your ancestors. So women nowadays in India do have equal co-parcenary rights, equal right in property. But in reality, very few Indian women get that. Now, when it comes to tribal, the situation is worse because Section 2 of the Hindu Succession Act 2005 says this rule does not apply to scheduled tribes. That's heartbreaking. Remember this. You can give this example and quote this data in your GS answers. Always remember, my dear, the more government welfare schemes, the more constitutional articles, and the more current affairs you write in the GS and your essay, even the optional, the more marks you get. Especially optional like sociology, PSIR, psychology. Lots and lots of examples you need to provide. And for the GS, the more you make your answer relevant by highlighting these things, the better marks you get for sure. So do remember this point, that although the Hindu Succession Act 2005 gives equal co-parcenary rights to Indian women, very few Indian women are getting equal property because of dowry. Dowry is considered the movable property. So women are given movable property like jewelry and money. while men become custodians of non-movable, immovable property like land and property. That's the problem. So women don't get equal share. But the situation is worse for tribal women because the Hindu Succession Act that gives equal property rights to girls in India is excluding tribal women. Section 2 of the same act says scheduled tribes not included here. Therefore, the problem is that in July 2025, there was a court case in Supreme Court called the Ram Charan versus the Sukharam case. Under this, Supreme Court clearly said that ancestral property was being denied to Hindu girls, Indian girls, under the Hindu Succession Act. This is a violation of Fundamental Right Article 14 of the Constitution, where there cannot be any discrimination on the basis of your gender. Right to equality is being violated. Then, this also says that by excluding tribal women from the Hindu Succession Act under Section 2, you are creating worst form of gender bias for tribal ladies. Because in the tribal societies, the tribal customs and tribal traditions are dominating. That means even under the Uniform Civil Code, Article 44 of the Indian Constitution, Directive Principles of State Policy, DPSP, while UCC, Uniform Civil Code, will make same laws for every Indian community across marriage, divorce, property, inheritance, adoption. But tribals will not be included here also. Because it is believed that tribal have a unique lifestyle and culture and we cannot destroy that. But it also leads to problems. If tribals cannot be covered by UCC, if they cannot be covered by Hindu Succession Act, then where will tribal women go for their rights? Today, if tribes are being governed by their own customs and traditions, then it is the tribal women who are always biased against when it comes to succession, marriage, and adoption. According to an agriculture census of 2015-16, scheduled tribe women only own 16.7% land. The remaining is owned by men. Scheduled tribe men are owning 83.3% land. Look at the level of bias between women and men in the tribal communities. In the past also, Supreme Court has said in many other landmark cases. Among these, I strongly request you to remember two. The second and the third one. First one I'm just sharing with you. The Madhu Kishtwar versus State of Bihar case 1996. Supreme Court said, if women are not getting a right in family property, it is the issue of the family. There is nothing that anybody can do. That was the decision that came in the court of Bihar. So the Bihar High Court supported certain such laws that were not ready to give land or inheritance to women. But contradictory thing happened in 2022 when in the very famous case, Kamla Neti versus Special Land Acquisition case, Supreme Court case 2022, it was said that tribal women have property rights. Then the most important and the one you have to remember for your exam, my dear, 2025 Ram Charan versus Sukharam case. It said denying inheritance to daughters is complete violation of right to equality, Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. Article 15 also says gender-based discrimination is prohibited. Article 21, the right to life and liberty and dignity applies to women as well. Article 13, no customs and no traditions will be protected by the government if they fail to respect fundamental rights. Very important. And now the fifth schedule of the Constitution that takes care of all tribal management, tribal administration in majority of Indian states with tribes, except the four states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram, because these four, I always tell you to remember in the form of AMTM. Many students forget which states come exclusively under 6th schedule, AMTM. Remember this small acronym. Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. For these four states, because tribals here are very unique in the form of their anthropological evolution and their culture, they all come under 6th schedule, my dear. Apart from AMTM states, for the other states you have 5th schedule where tribal populations are dominating to protect scheduled areas or tribal areas. Scheduled tribal areas. So under the 5th schedule, Governance framework for scheduled areas is specified, which also gives rights to tribal women. So, therefore, constitutionally, every woman in India has a right to co-parcenary. So, just because the Hindu Succession Act 2005 under Section 2 excludes tribal women, does that mean we should ignore all these landmark Supreme Court verdicts like the Kamala Niti and the Ramcharan one? Does it mean we should ignore Article 14, 15, 13, 21? We cannot do that. So, therefore, it's high time we do provide tribals their rights, especially the women. It leads to gender injustice otherwise. For tribals, land is not only a way of lifestyle, also the main source of income. You can't deny that. Now, if you deny a woman right to property, then what happens? Sometimes it leads to further domestic, physical, sexual abuse of these women. Now, many times the tribal communities say that we cannot give women the property because women get married and then they will take the property away to the new family. But the tribal land is a community land, it is held by the whole community. So, therefore, they do not even share the tribal land details with the Gram Sabha. They say we cannot break the land. It is the custom, it belongs to whole community, so only boys of the community will have it. But that's a very patriarchal argument. There has to be some way out for that. It's quite like saying that if dowry is allowed, then why should women get right to property? It's not fair. Now, it also leads to land alienation. The tribals feel that if we give land to our girls after marriage, our land will get alienated, taken away from us. But in reality, it is always women who work as the landless labor in agriculture lands. They work as nomadic workers in forests. By giving them custody of land, you are ensuring a more empowered family and much better economic empowerment for them. So, highlighting these age old arguments, women under the tribals cannot be disallowed their co-parcenary right. That's the argument of the article. Very good morning, Ajit. Okay, now let's look at the question. Consider the following statements regarding property rights of tribal women in India. One, under Hindu Succession Act 2005, scheduled tribe women are automatically given equal rights in family property. Two, in the Ram Charan versus Sukharam 2025 case, please remember the case for the exam. Supreme Court held exclusion of daughters from ancestral property amounts to violation of fundamental rights like 14, 15 and 21 and 13. 3. Certain tribes in Northeast India, they follow matrilineal systems. Now let me explain. Yes, there are certain tribes, for example in Meghalaya. Meghalaya has some tribes called the Khasi tribe, Garo tribe, Jaintia tribes. Similarly, in Uttarakhand, you have some tribes like the Jaunsar Bavari tribes. In such tribes, even today, the matrilineal system is followed, which means the family inheritance and the family descent takes place in the name of the mother. So these are highly matriarchal communities. They are an exception to the general norm of patriarchy in India. So that's called matrilineal system, where your name and the property will be going in the mother's side, not in the boys and the father's side. So certain tribes in Northeast India follow the matrilineal system where women enjoy customary inheritance rights. So which of these statements do you think is or are valid? Absolutely, Ramu. Absolutely, Ajit. Good morning, Ponguru. That's well answered there. Very good. Okay, so let's proceed now with the next article. And the next article is saying that if you deny upward mobility, what is upward mobility? What is upward mobility? The word mobility, very good, Reshma, absolutely valid. Now, mobility means movement. For example, mobile phone. Why is it called mobile? Because you can take it anywhere. Similarly, there is a concept of social mobility. I think my sociology students know it. Let me explain to others. Very good morning, Saurav. Yeah, that's the valid answer, dear. Okay, so social movement. If a person in a society or if a group in a society changes their class, their position, for example, I am lower class, economically very poor, but suddenly I get a good job and I get money. Now I might go to the middle class. What if I become more successful and rich? I may become the upper class. That's called social mobility. It can be both way, upward also, downward also. For example, if somebody was very rich, but they lost their money, maybe after COVID pandemic, the business closed down. From upper class, they now became poor, they came to lower class. Okay. So in society, you can change your position depending on the money, job, power that you have. Okay. So the article is talking about upward mobility, going up the ladder, improving your economic and social position. Very good, Ramu. Absolutely. So from your previous position, you are improving your position. So this article says when people in a society like India, they deny people with benchmark physical disabilities the right to upward mobility, the right to improve their social position. It is absolutely exploitation. It is defeating the purpose of giving the PWD 4% quota all India in services and in education sector. That's the Supreme Court argument, and the Supreme Court has clearly told the central government of India that people with disability. Now, often you call them PWD. I think everybody knows that they are getting 4% quota in government jobs and educational institutions of the government to promote their participation. But generally, we call them people with benchmark disability. So, what is a benchmark disability? See, please understand in a society, we can have different kinds of disabilities. Some people can have a visual problem, some can have a they cannot talk, some people will not be able to hear properly, audio problems, or related to their speech audio senses. Some people have problems regarding neuromotor problems, they can't walk. All of those problems can be so many kinds, but the government identifies around 21 such disabilities in society that are very severe in nature. They are called benchmark disabilities. Benchmark disability. Now, those people who suffer from any of these 21 disabilities in such a way that the individual is found to have 40% or more of that particular disability. For example, color blindness. Some people can have very little, they can manage, some can have a lot of color blindness. Sometimes it leads to complete blindness. That's dangerous. So, therefore, across these 21 benchmark identified disorders, if an individual is found to have 40% or more of that given disease, if you have color blindness, 40% is the extent of your disorder, only then you qualify for PWD quota 4%. Today, the Supreme Court has told the Indian government that, absolutely very well said order, under the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016, we have decided to give people who are suffering from benchmark disabilities, the PWDs, across 21 diseases, people with 40% and more of that particular disorder will, under section 34 of the Right to People with Disability Act 2016, they will get 4% quota. That is a good initiative. But the problem is that there are some people from PWD segment who are performing very well. They are doing very well in exams. They are qualifying for government entrance exams. They are performing very well in government offices. Their performance in education institution is excellent. They are very meritorious people. For those people who are getting such good marks, whose performance is so good that they achieve marks that qualify them for the unreserved category also. Their marks are so good that they are competing with the general candidates, general category people. In that case, why do you have to give them quota? That is the Supreme Court's argument. If they are so meritorious, then why are you stopping them and keeping them within the PWD quota, the PWD category? If they are performing so well, then they should be counted as general candidate. Open up the GC category for them also. What benefit will this have? This will allow other PWD people who really have a lot of disability, who are unable to perform or who are having difficulty in getting good marks and selections in government jobs, they will be the ones who will avail and utilize these seats that are extra now. So why not we do that? People with disability who are not able to score better, they will get more opportunity. They will get better jobs. If you open up and free the quotas of excellent performing students, those who are very meritorious, allow them to participate in the general category. Give them those seats. The seats that will be free now will be used by those who are very, very severely disabled and those who are unable to perform well. This is quite good, because if you continue to keep the excellent, meritorious students of the PWD within the PWD category only, then what happens? It is a waste of quota system. It's a complete waste. So the meritorious PWD people will fill up all the seats, and the weaker PWD, those who are really very poor, those who have acute, severe disability, and who are unable to study and perform well in offices, they will always lose chances. So court's concern is that by not letting the meritorious and excellent performing PWD get upgraded to the general category seats, this means we are denying them opportunities, and within the same category, you are discriminating the ones who are weaker and not performing well. That's the Supreme Court understanding in 2025. So, therefore, the Supreme Court has asked the government of India, the union government, to clarify how can we provide upward mobility to the PWD people who are performing very well, who are the meritorious people indeed. And the Supreme Court has also told the central government, please treat the PWD segment just like you treat the OBC, ST, and ST segment. If people from OBC, other backward classes, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, if they are getting very good marks and they perform well, then they are often moved up to the general seats. Then why to deny the same thing to the PWD people? After all, by denying them equality, once again we are questioning the right to equality, Article 14. Right? So therefore, that's the argument of the Supreme Court clearly. A very good question, Ramu. Absolutely, absolutely. It does deprive, that's true. But that's the sad part about the quota system in general. Now, talking about OBC, OBC is getting 27% all India. Scheduled caste, 15%. Scheduled tribe, 7.5%. EWS, economically weaker segment. From 2019 onwards, they are getting 10%. PWD, 4%. In Maharashtra, recently you saw how much people fought for getting the OBC quota. Something similar is happening in other states also. So ultimately, what is going on in India? Ultimately, long back in India, in 1992, there was a very famous Supreme Court judgment. It was known as the Indira Sahni case. Under the Indira Sahni case, the government, rather the Supreme Court, had said that no matter how much reservation happens, it should not exceed 50% upper limit. But what is happening right now in India? All states have crossed 50%. In Chhattisgarh, in Bihar, already we are touching 75, 80%. Tamil Nadu, Andhra. So naturally, it's a big cause of concern that today reservation system has exceeded much beyond 50. What if it becomes 100? It's very difficult. So we need to recalibrate the whole strategy. That's exactly the point here. Okay. That's a very good question, Saurabh. So, when we talk about OBC, please understand OBC is a more general category. Okay, why they get 27%? It's because long back in India, uh, in around 1990 and 89, it was decided that OBC is a broad category called other backward classes, not caste. So, therefore, they are also known as socially and educationally backward classes. Reason is that in OBC, we do not only include the Hindu backward castes, the so-called traditional Shudra caste, but also we are including other religions like Sikhism, Buddhism. Why? Because some people also converted to other religions long back. But the bigger fight today is that a lot of communities like the Christian community, the Muslim community feel that if Sikhism, Buddhism, all of them are getting representation in the OBC category, then why don't we get? Because those Hindus from the backward caste who had converted into Christianity and Islam, they are not getting any quota under scheduled caste. They don't get. In scheduled caste, only Hindu backward caste, Buddhist, and Sikhism, they are represented. And that's the problem with Muslim and Christian communities. They are saying, why don't we get? We should also get. But in OBC, everybody gets. In OBC, Hindu backward classes are also there, Muslims are also there, Christians are also there, Buddhism, everyone, any individual who has been a victim of age old social or educational backwardness will get representation in the OBC category. It's a very open category, very open. So it is not only about one religion, it's about multiple religions. And we calculate on the basis of generational deprivation, owing to caste abuse, educational backwardness, economic backwardness, all of that is OBC. But SC is a very small category, very narrow category. That's only open to Hindu Dalits and those converted into Buddhism, Sikhism, and those who are already in the Hindu religion. So it's a narrow category. And ST is completely different, only for the backward areas among backward tribes among scheduled tribes. So all in all, if we add everything together, it crosses 50%. Now that defeats the purpose of reservation. I hope OBC was clear to you. It's a very general category, generally broad category. That's why it keeps changing. Some are removed, some are added, and even within OBC, those who are very, very poor are the ones who are getting. Say, for example, if they have lesser than 8 to 10 lakh income per annum, they are the non-creamy layer. Those who have money in the OBC, the creamy layer, don't get any reservation. Okay, so it's a very controversial category. Yes, absolutely, order. That was Varna system. I agree. Absolutely, Ramu. That's also correct. We should go for economic system. There is a big debate going on, in fact, right now. That why don't we make SC and ST also on the lines of OBC? OBC has creamy layer, non-creamy layer. Make the same layer for SC and ST also. What is the problem in that? So these are debates that keep going on, but often they are not exactly successful because of political agendas also. Political parties are also having their own vote bank politics. It's a very complex issue, actually. Okay. A very good morning, Anders. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think your point is also valid. Okay, quickly now the next article. Russia and Belarus start military drills as West watches in fear. So yesterday we all know what happened. Another big shock came. Russia-Ukraine war is already happening from 2022, right? Now what happened? Russia with its key ally Belarus was conducting an exercise called the Zapad exercise. I have made a detailed video on Zapad. I posted it yesterday. You can have a look if you want more details. Now, Zapad exercise is an exercise that both Russia and Belarus were doing. Military exercise. Now, by mistake, Russia says by mistake, some drones went and landed in Poland. Poland says it is not by mistake. It is not accidental, it is deliberate. So, as both the countries, Russia and Belarus, are conducting their massive Zapad exercise, large scale joint military exercise, which usually happens once in 4 years. So after 2021, it is happening now. India is also participating from Navy, Air Force, and military. All three wings. It's a trilateral participation from India also. So the Zapad is actually happening for the first time after Russia-Ukraine war. It's happening at a big scale. Russia and Belarus are the main participants. But by mistake, some drones went to Poland, which is on the border area. Now, Poland is saying it was deliberate. So, countries who are on the eastern boundary of the NATO countries, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, US plus EU, anti Russia wing, they are scared. They are saying deliberately Russia is trying to attack the NATO countries, and Poland says if Russia does not stop, I will invoke Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which means joint safety. If one country of NATO is attacked, joint reaction will come from all NATO countries. That's the NATO Charter, Article 5. Poland is saying, I will invoke that. Already, Poland has put 40,000 troops on the border. They are also conducting drills now. Poland is saying Russia has deliberately created tensions in my airspace and I will not tolerate that. So, what is happening in Zapad? Under Zapad, there is helicopters, there are missiles, all of them were being tested out. But as Poland was hit, Russia says by mistake, Poland says deliberately. Now, what is happening? Uh, Poland and other countries of NATO have become so insecure and so upset that they feel that entire Grodno area is now under aggression. So, for your UPSC prelims exam next year, that's 2026, I always keep telling you places in the news will come. So one more area has made news. It is very important. Which is that area? The Grodno area. I will make a video for that if you want, exclusively. So this area, which is the Grodno area, a border area between Belarus, Poland, Lithuania, very close to Ukraine, is today very, very sensitive. Completely it's making news. And Moscow is saying, Russia is saying, my drills are not targeted against anybody. So NATO is lying. They are accusing us falsely. But that's what the countries like Poland and Lithuania are saying, that because it is happening so close to the border, and from Russia and from Belarus, certain drones have already attacked, reached the Poland area. Poland says we will not stop if it comes to war. So, the location called the Grodno area of Belarus, bordering Poland, Lithuania, very close to Ukraine, is in news right now because of this Zapad exercise and the so called attack on Poland. Very important, it will come in the exam. Grodno area. Remember, absolutely, because it is America who feels that I am the UN. America feels there is no need for UN, WTO, and IMF because America is everything. That's the problem here. So, what's the question? Consider the following statements about Zapad. One, the Zapad 25 drills are the first to happen after Russia Ukraine War 2022. Two, they are being conducted jointly by Russia and Belarus. The drills are happening in the Grodno region, bordering Poland and Lithuania. Three, Russia's northern fleet has been deployed in the Barents Sea and Arctic Ocean as a part of this exercise. A small hint, absolutely that is true. So you have to decide between the first two options now. You can post your answers, you can think about it and also verify it from the last slide. If you want more details about Grodno, any more detail about this entire Barent and Arctic Ocean, please let me know. If not here, then in any other video comment box, I will track those comments and get back to you. Absolutely valid, Ajit. That's well answered there. Now, one of the last articles for the day, India has voted in the favor of a solution to the Palestine state problem in the United Nations General Assembly resolution. So, for the first time, India has taken an open stand against Israel. India has not taken the name of Israel directly. India has not blamed Israel. India cannot afford to have bitter relationship with Israel US party. But for the first time, India came out of its non alignment strategy and openly said that I will vote in the favor of a resolution that endorses a very important declaration called New York Declaration. Now, once again, very important for your prelims next year. New York Declaration. See, all these will come in the prelims next year. And when we do the paper discussion, I will remind you that, see, if you had taken the session seriously, then Grodno has come. And the New York Declaration has come. Abraham Accords have come. Okay, so that time I will remind you. So remember, be very careful about these things. The Grodno was one. Now I'm talking about the New York Declaration. So India says, I want to support the creation of Palestine as a separate, a systematically recognized area. Enough of the war. Let's stop the genocide now. We have to have a solution as many people are dying each day. Violation of human rights clearly. So first time India came out of its non-alignment, complete isolation from active participation and voted in the favor of New York Declaration. So what is the New York Declaration? Very important. Once again, I'm repeating. The New York Declaration that was signed in July 2025 was led by France and Saudi Arabia. This should also remind you of the Abraham Accord. Yesterday we were talking about Abraham Accord and I think Order was the one who also, yes, absolutely mentioned Abraham Accord. See, I remember every statement what every student is making. So you should also remember what I'm saying. So Abraham Accords were a series of negotiations that were being led by Saudi Arabia to find a solution to Israel-Palestine conflict. Similarly, New York Declaration signed in 25 July, led by France and Saudi Arabia. They want peace for everyone, including a solution to Israel-Palestine conflict. Absolutely well said. Including, once again, a creation of the two-state solution, that Israel and Palestine are able to mutually decide what is their respective territory and stop this war immediately. So India today has favored the New York Declaration and India wants Israel to start now, at least acknowledging the two-state solution. A total of 142 countries have voted in the favor. 10 countries, including US and Israel, have voted against it. There are many countries who remained neutral. They did not vote. India was one who voted this time. It's a big step taken by India, by the way. For the first time, India has taken a stand openly in the global community, which is against the same stand taken by US and Israel. Ideologically, India has always been towards the US Israel camp, towards the Quad camp, against the China led SCO and ASEAN camp. But today, for the first time, India has voted openly in support of the New York Declaration, the two-state solution, which means ideologically against US and Israel. Okay. Now, what is the solution? All these countries under New York Declaration want an end to the war of Israel and Palestine. They want a sovereign, separate Palestine state. They also want that Israel and Palestine should exist as independent states side by side so that there is a recognized border. There should be no more attacking and killing that are happening for the last few years now. And the New York Declaration, because I have told you already, it's about leadership by France and Saudi Arabia. Very important to know for the exam, okay? Now, India therefore is saying that India historically has always supported the two-state solution, but India has continued to also support Israel when Israel says we want an end to Hamas terrorism. Obviously, Israel is not wrong when it says that all the fight that we are doing is to kill the Hamas. The problem is that Israel continues to attack the innocent people, and countries like Qatar, countries like Iran, who were ready to negotiate. That is the problem. So India says we will continue to support the two-state solution. We want independent Palestine and a peace, a new peace in West Asia. At the same time, India says we also want to continue our friendship with Israel across defense, technology, agriculture, because yes, we are age-old friends. So India is saying, yes, we want a separate Palestine, but at the same time, India will maintain and respect its bilateral relation with Israel. And the last news of the day says retail inflation is increasing after a long 9-month low. Why? Clearly, the reasons are there. Now, earlier, before 9 months, the retail inflation was 1.55%. For 9 months after being so low, suddenly it hiked up to 2.1%. Why is this happening? It is happening because although across vegetables and pulses, the inflation has been quite low. We know that the government has announced the new GST reform. From multi-slab GST, we are working towards a two-slab GST, 5, 18 and 40%. 40% is an exception only on luxury and sin goods. But for a majority of other necessity goods items, we have 5% and some are 18%. So naturally, the food prices have become affordable. Inflation is becoming very easy. So vegetable and pulses are becoming affordable by the people. So are medications and daily use items like soaps and, basic needs of every day. At the same time, the problem is that oil and fuel has caused a problem, and it was expected also. You see, constantly, US has been threatening India that stop importing oil and gas from Russia. At the same time, we know that just 2 days back, Israel has attacked Qatar. When Israel attacks Qatar, it is attracting a lot of anger from all the Arabic countries, which means once again, these are the key suppliers. The OPEC countries are the key supplier of oil in the world. That leads to supply shocks. Plus, India is busy importing oil from Russia right now. But even after the 50% tariff imposition on India, India's affordability has also come down. So all these things have led to a hike in the price of oil and fuel in general. If that's happening, then what happens? Naturally, inflation will be increasing. So, although basic goods and basic services have not increased, but because of oil and fuel, transportation costs, supply chain, all these have jumped up inflation to quite high because the global prices have had a very high and a very tall impact on India's prices. Small news, and now we end just the last important thing to see that once again, as India and US are now ready to negotiate on the table to find a solution to the tariff war. Both the countries are interested in creating a free trade agreement, an FTA. For India, it is a great benefit because US and India share a $48 billion trade. Indian exports to the US are 48 billion. Now with 50% tariff, Indian exporters are experiencing problems, especially the labor intensive sectors like textile, apparel, footwear, toys, gems and jewelry. All these are suffering because of high tariff. Indian goods are not competitive in US market and demand is going down. So today, if the free trade agreement happens and US government is ready to negotiate and bring down the tariff limit from 50 to at least 10 or 20, it is a very great thing for India to happen. But the problem is US is once again being very conditional about it. The problem is that US has clearly said, US ambassador designate Mr. Sergio Gore has said that India should stop importing oil from Russia immediately. If India wants a free trade agreement and better relation with US, then immediately we have to prioritize to stopping import from Russia. Absolutely. And US wants that. India should respect the sanctions that US has imposed on Russia, that nobody will buy Russian oil at all. If India is ready to do that, then there is negotiation absolutely, and that will be in the interest of both the countries. But otherwise, US may not do anything for India. It's a threat. Again, it's a threat only. But from India's side, once again, we have been very, very autonomous and quite clear in saying that oil imports are for national interest and market dynamics. They are not about ideology. We don't support Russia's war in Ukraine. We don't support Russia's domination in the entire Western Russian region. All we are saying is that it benefits our economy, it is cheaper to afford because you know that it is the Sar crude oil. It is an oil that has a higher sulfur content that comes from Russia, Ural mountain. It's easier on the pocket, it's easy to afford. Plus, transportation cost is less as compared to the sweeter, low sulfur oil that comes from Texas region, as compared to the expensive oil that comes from West Asia, which is also leading to transportation cost. So India will buy something that is taking less time, cheaper to afford, easy to use. Plus, Russia is our friend. So India will have to look at its own economic interest here, and India will not take its energy decisions by bowing down in front of global geopolitical pressures. It's business after all order, absolutely. And now, with that, I'll end today's discussion. I'm extremely thankful for all these wonderful comments. Now, there is one question by Saurav that, okay, I've already spoken about that NATO and US thing. And there was one more question actually. That question was about how to prepare for current affairs. Yes, absolutely, Saurav. How to prepare the current affairs notes. It's a very valid question for UPSC. So, my dear, there's one thing that I will strongly recommend. See, take up the news analysis seriously. That's you're already doing that. One, because you save time in scanning the whole newspaper. So when we do it here, my purpose of bringing you the Hindu analysis is that all the important points for GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4 and prelims will be covered. Two, you can download this PDF or the PPT directly from the description segment, the description box under this video. If you are having a problem in downloading, you can let me know. I will fix it. I will talk to the backend team. So that you can do immediately. Third thing you can do is also look for StudyIQ. At the same platform, there are faculties who are also taking the Yojana analysis, the Yojana magazine on a monthly basis. You can take that analysis and look at the important monthly current affairs there. Then the best thing to do would be, if even after downloading the PDFs, you think that you forget, then keep a separate document with you in your computer, or if you are using a notebook, that's even better. For every day, whichever important points that you have seen, you can keep putting the date and noting that down. So by the end of every month, you will have the important compilation of that month. So by next year prelims, before that, you will have a quick, your own document to revise everything from. Plus, we also keep giving you detailed current affairs analysis. If there is any extra thing that you want about these issues, you can get from there. Now, beyond all this, if still there is anything else that you want, I can do for you. At the end of the month, if you want me to compile something for you from the Hindu, if you want a dedicated video on that, please let me know. See, we are all here for you. If you need that, immediately I'll get that, and we will also provide that to you. So nothing to worry. Among these, whatever option works for you, we are there to help you in that. Okay, but be updated. And today, as I said, what is the most important takeaway? From tomorrow, let me add additional slide. I will put the important takeaways for today's current affairs section. I think that will help you a lot. Like the Godno region, like the DPDP Act. Similarly, we also spoke about something else. Ural Mountains oils, sulfur content. We spoke about the Property Inheritance Hindu Succession Act 2005. So all these are in the news. They are very important. So from tomorrow, let me bring additional page here. Let's also talk about the key takeaways from today. That will help you in remembering everything. So thank you so much for being with me here. I'll see you on Monday now with another Hindu analysis. Thank you so much, Ajit. That was kind of you. Thank you, Order. Thank you, each one of you here. Okay, all the best and see you. Absolutely. Ramcharan and Sukaram case. Brilliant. Thank you, Ramu.